My name's Lily. I'm 28. And just a few months ago, I thought my life had finally settled down. I work in a big marketing company in Chicago. Work always took up most of my time, but I liked it. I felt needed, smart, and like I was part of something important. But the greatest happiness came from Ethan, my boyfriend of 2 years. He was charming, caring, and, at least I thought, completely loyal. We lived together, cooked dinner, planned a trip to Boston. He even joked about looking for a ring. I had no idea that in just a few weeks, everything would fall apart. A new coworker joined our office, Claire. Tall, confident, perfectly dressed. She had that kind of charisma that made men act like teenagers. Everyone noticed her. Ethan did too. At first, I didn't care. We were adults. We had our jobs, and I trusted him. But then small things started to change. He began staying late at work, claiming there were urgent projects. During dinner, he'd smile at his phone, saying it was just memes from coworkers. One evening, I decided to stop by the office just to grab some papers I'd forgotten. And there they were, standing near the coffee machine, laughing, and Claire had her hand on his shoulder. It might have looked innocent, but something in his eyes told me it wasn't. I didn't make a scene. I simply said hi, took my folders, and left. But something inside me broke. I couldn't see him the same way again, and that's when the idea formed. I wouldn't let them destroy my life so easily. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Ethan was still asleep, his phone on the nightstand beside him. I had never gone through his phone before. I believed that when there's trust, there's no need for that. But that morning, doubt was eating me alive. I didn't look for anything specific, I just opened his messages. And there it was. Claire had texted him late at night. "I can't stop thinking about you after today." And he replied, "Me neither. But be careful at work." It felt like someone poured ice water over me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, and all I could hear in my head was one thing. He cheated. I didn't go to work that day. I just couldn't. I sat in the kitchen, staring at my coffee cup, wondering how I could have been so blind. I replayed every little thing, his late nights, his weird excuses, that business trip he came back from smiling like he'd just won the lottery. That evening, I pulled myself together. On the outside, calm, inside, a volcano. I acted like I didn't know a thing. He came home, kissed me on the cheek, and asked how my day was. "Fine," I said with a smile. I wasn't planning a scene. I was planning a game. If Claire wanted to play with my life, fine. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. The next day, I arrived at the office early and greeted her casually. Claire smiled as if everything was perfect. But I could see right through her. I saw how she looked at Ethan, how she tilted her head when he spoke. She thought she had won, but I decided that this time, I would be the one to win. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan. Not panic, not jealousy, a plan. If Ethan and Claire wanted to play secret games, I'd let them think they were safe. Meanwhile, I'd be collecting evidence. I started small, by becoming colder, not distant, just calm. I stopped asking where he was, when he'd be home, or what he was doing at work, and that confused him. He expected emotions, tears, accusations, but instead, he got silence. And that silence bothered him. I had power now, and I could feel it. At work, I played smart. I knew Ethan and Claire talked through the internal office chat. Sometimes Claire would forget to lock her laptop when she left the meeting room. One day, I accidentally sat at her desk just to see if my suspicions were true. And there it was. "Claire, I can't believe we're risking everything for this. But when you look at me, I forget the rest. Ethan, no one will ever find out. Just stay calm, especially around Lily." My hands were shaking, but I took a screenshot. Then another. And another. I didn't plan to use them right away. I was waiting for the perfect moment. After work, I smiled at him like nothing had happened. Cooked dinner, listened to him talk about his exhausting day. But inside, I was thinking only one thing. You have no idea what I know. It wasn't anger that kept me going. It was justice. I didn't just want to expose them. I wanted them to destroy themselves. I realized direct confrontation wasn't my way. A public scene, yelling in the office. That was what Claire expected, and she would have relished the attention. No, I needed a method of quiet ruin. When someone becomes the puppet of their own mistakes, step 1, control the atmosphere. I started playing with little things that seemed insignificant but undermined her confidence during lunch. I casually noted her reactions when work topics came up. In the department, I would accidentally stand nearby when she was talking to others. People noticed those tiny glitches, delayed smiles, off jokes, misnaming someone. Then I moved to social isolation. Not overt, but subtle. I stopped inviting her to informal teen gatherings when I knew there would be a barbecue or cocktails. When she asked, I answered politely. We decided to keep it small for those who worked on Project X. No one noticed the lie, but Claire noticed being left out, and it gnawed at her. Another tactic was controlling information. I learned to drop rumors that seemed logical, that some people thought Claire was overly ambitious, or that someone had seen her too, close to a certain colleague without naming names. The goal wasn't to burn her reputation instantly, but to sow doubt. People love to tell and then retell, psychologically important. I never attacked her personally. I criticized her choices, her work style, her flirting manner, but I never touched her looks, background, or family. That felt fair, and fairness weighs more than truth in the world of office intrigue. Claire started to stumble. Small, almost imperceptible slips. She forgot a go-to line in a presentation. Couldn't pull examples together. Was late to a client meeting. Each error was like a tiny crystal, meaningless alone. But together they formed a chain pulling her down. The most interesting thing was her eyes. Once there was defiance. Now there was anxiety. She became cautious, looking at me more than anyone else, as if searching for validation. That was my trophy. When someone starts seeking answers from the person they tried to break, it's always satisfying. Meanwhile, I continued collecting evidence. Screenshots, messages, timestamps, everything filed like an operation archive. But now I did more. I created situations that made their dialogues less guarded. One careless, like one sarcastic public chat comment, and they'd tighten their own noose. I didn't want to destroy them physically or humiliate them to the bottom. I wanted to show everyone what people are capable of. Revenge isn't a scream. It's restoring balance. And when I looked in the mirror in the morning, I no longer saw just a woman with a broken heart. I saw someone who can turn pain into a tool. Just one more step, and the whole office illusion would crack like porcelain under a hard blow. And I had written on my wrist as a promise, don't stop until the end. A few weeks passed. Ethan acted as if everything was fine, but I could see it. He was nervous. My calm answers, my indifference, it scared him. People who thrive on drama never know what to do with silence. One evening over dinner, he said, Lily, you've changed. Do you even love me anymore? I looked at him and smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just growing up, Ethan, you know? Sometimes love isn't a constant fight. It's peace. His eyes shifted away, and I knew he didn't understand what I meant, but that was exactly what I wanted. The next day, I accidentally left his phone on the couch when I left the house. He forgot to take it, and I knew Claire would text him. A few hours later, I sent him a message from my phone. You forgot your phone. I put it in your desk drawer at work. In truth, I hadn't. I just wanted to see what he'd do. Half an hour later, he called me from an unknown number, anxious, tense. Lily, where are you? Are you sure you left it in the drawer? Yeah, why? What's wrong? I replied calmly. Nothing, I'm just busy right now, he said quickly and hung up. An hour later, I got a message from Claire on our company chat. Hey Lily, have you seen Ethan? He lost his phone and is freaking out, running around the office. I just replied, oh really? He probably just forgot where he left it. Happens. She had no idea I was watching her. Then I took another step. I knew their usual texting times, so I accidentally mentioned Claire in the group chat during one of them. Claire, can you check my reports? Ethan said you had a copy. Silence. Then, a nervous response a minute later, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll check now." And Ethan was sitting in the conference room at that very moment. His face turned pale when he saw the message. They both started making mistakes. Claire became overly cautious, so much that coworkers started to notice. Ethan began avoiding me, thinking I knew something. And I just kept playing my part, calm, cold, professional. The greatest power is when your enemy has no idea how powerful you really are. The tension in the air became noticeable. Even to those who had no idea what was going on, something had shifted in the office. Conversations got shorter, lunches quieter, even laughter sounded forced. And Claire and Ethan, they couldn't keep up the act anymore. I saw how he avoided her gaze in meetings. She tried to act calm, but her hands gave her away, constantly twirling a pen, touching her hair, mumbling under her breath. Coworkers started whispering. It was perfect. I didn't even have to lift a finger. It was all happening on its own. One day, during a meeting for a new campaign, Ethan and Claire were supposed to present together. I sat at the far end of the table, watching them exchange nervous glances. Then it happened. Claire forgot a key number in the presentation. Ethan tried to prompt her, and she snapped. "If you're so smart, why don't you present it yourself?" Silence. Even the manager didn't know what to say. I almost smiled. Later, in the break room, I poured myself a cup of coffee and overheard whispers behind the wall. It was them. "You're ruining this, Claire," Ethan hissed. "Oh, really? Maybe you shouldn't have started this at work," she snapped. "Calm down, please. Lily doesn't know anything." "Are you sure about that?" Warmth spread inside me. They were breaking down, and the best part? I hadn't even touched them. The next week, I made the final move. At the company party where everyone showed up, I looked flawless. Dress, smile, confidence. Ethan looked exhausted. Claire, pale. During the toast, our manager joked, "Ethan and Claire make a great team. Let's hope you stay just as." "Close in your work." Laughter. I raised my glass and looked at them. Their faces were worth every second of patience. They couldn't hide their panic anymore. And that's when I knew I didn't need to do anything else. Fear would do it for me. That night, driving home through the glowing city, I thought, revenge isn't an action. It's peace when the universe starts working for you. I always knew lies had an expiration date. You can tell yourself everything's under control, but one tiny detail will eventually break it all. For Claire, that detail was an email. It was a normal Monday morning. I walked into the office, grabbed my coffee, and noticed Claire frantically clicking her mouse. She looked like she was about to cry. An hour later, my manager called me into his office. "Lily," he said, "it seems Claire accidentally forwarded a client an email that wasn't meant for them." I sat down. "What kind of email?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He sighed. "A personal one. And it seems Ethan was mentioned." When I stepped out, the office was buzzing. Some were laughing, others whispering. Claire sat at her desk, pale as a ghost. Ethan tried to look composed, but every move betrayed him. I watched as the manager approached them, speaking quietly, his expression tight. Within half an hour, both were summoned to the director's office. Later that day, a coworker texted me, "Did you hear? Claire's been suspended. The client complained about unprofessional behavior." I simply replied, "Oh, that's a shame. She seemed smart." And it was true, a shame. But justice is rarely gentle. Ethan didn't come home that night. He texted, "Staying late. Work problems." I replied, "I understand. I hope Claire is staying late too." No response. The next day, he was called into management. When he returned, I saw fear in his eyes, not for his career, but because the truth was no longer hidden. I didn't say a word, just made coffee as usual. And when he sat beside me, I whispered softly, "Sometimes karma just needs a little push." He looked at me, and for the first time, he understood that I knew everything. Ethan came home late that night. No cologne, no smile. His face was tired, worn out, his eyes empty. I was sitting on the couch, sipping tea, calmly turning pages of a book. "We need to talk," he said quietly. I closed the book, not even looking up. "Go ahead." I made a mistake, Lily. A big one. And I regret it, he said, his voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen. With Claire? I asked flatly. Or with the part where you thought I was stupid? He fell silent, and that silence was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. It didn't mean anything, he began. She just distracted me. I was stressed, work was crazy, and cheating isn't a mistake, Ethan, I interrupted. It's a choice, and you made it. He looked down. I know, but I love you. I smiled. You don't love me. You love the idea of me, the one who forgives, who stays quiet to avoid fights, but I'm not her anymore. I stood up, walked calmly to the dresser, opened the drawer, and took out an envelope. Inside, the screenshots I'd saved. I placed them on the table in front of him. Don't worry. I never showed them to anyone. I don't need to humiliate you to win. He looked at me, guilt, panic, fear in his eyes. You knew this whole time? Yes, I said simply. And I waited for you to destroy everything yourself. I grabbed the suitcase I had packed that morning. I won't scream, I won't cry, I won't make a scene. I'm just leaving, because now I finally remember who I am. He said nothing. As I walked past him, I felt the air between us heavy, like before a storm. And then I said, You didn't lose me because of Claire. You lost me the day you decided I'd never find out. I left the apartment and closed the door. No tears, no regret. And for the first time in a long while, I was free. Months passed. My life became quieter, calmer, and for the first time, that didn't scare me. I rented a small apartment overlooking the river, where the morning sunlight turned everything golden. I started running every morning, not because I wanted to escape something, but because I could finally breathe. I listened to music, made coffee just for myself, and every time my phone rang, I no longer flinched. No one held power over my peace anymore. Work changed too. After the scandal, Claire was officially fired. Ethan transferred to another department, and I was promoted. I became a project manager. Ironically, after all that chaos, my life finally aligned. Coworkers said I seemed different, confident, focused, strong, and they were right. Because now I knew strength isn't screaming or revenge. It's being able to stay quiet when you want to shout and smile when everyone expects you to fall. One evening during a corporate event, I saw Ethan. He was standing by the bar, alone, looking older, tired. His eyes met mine and he smiled, that same smile that once made me melt. But now it had no power. He came closer. You've changed, he said quietly. Yes, I replied, and for the first time, for the better. There was no anger between us anymore. Just distance that didn't hurt. He wanted to say something, but I simply raised my glass and said, To new beginnings. He nodded and I walked away. And for the first time, I realized that victory isn't when someone falls. It's when you walk away and never look back. That night, I opened my window, breathed in the cold night air, and thought, I survived. But not just survived, I grew. I'm no longer defined by what was done to me. I'm defined by what I did with it. When I first decided to write this story, I hesitated, not out of shame, not out of pain, but because it felt like reopening a door I had finally closed. Then I realized I'm not writing about betrayal anymore. I'm writing about myself. My name is Lily. I used to think love meant unconditional trust, even when it tore you apart, that you had to endure, understand, forgive, because everyone makes mistakes. Now, I know, mistakes are made by those who want to learn. Betrayal is done by those who never valued you. I went through the hell of jealousy, lies, and heartbreak. I watched two adults destroy not just themselves, but everything around them simply because they wanted to play with secrets. And once I wanted revenge, not anymore. I've learned that the best revenge is peace. When you stop crying, stop explaining, stop waiting for an apology. When you just move on and your life becomes better without any effort from them. I remember the day I walked out of that apartment. It was cold and dark and I thought the world had ended. But now when I wake up, open my curtains and see the sun, I realize that day wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If someone is reading this and feels broken, listen. You are not weak because you were betrayed. You are strong because you survived. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who never saw it. You just need to remind yourself. And one day, when you look in the mirror and see not pain, but confidence, know that you've won. Not over them, over yourself. I don't know if I'll ever see Ethan again or hear about Claire, but I don't care, because I finally learned to live not after someone, but for myself. And if this story helps even one person stop tolerating lies, stop staying quiet, stop doubting their worth, then it was worth telling. Because this isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about strength. My strength, and maybe yours too.